How's it going, truth seekers, skeptics, and anyone else who may be listening? This is Designated X, a channel dedicated to bringing the very best of the unexplained. I'm back again with an odd, unexplained, and hair-raising account of the unnatural. Before I start though, if you could please hit that like and subscribe button and share this post on social media or with any like-minded individuals, it sure would help a lot and I'd definitely appreciate it. Thank you all. Alright, let's get going.
Are you familiar with the so-called X-Files?
I believe they have to do with unexplained phenomena.
When convention and science offer us no answers, might we not finally turn to the fantastic as a plausibility?
Logically, I would have to say no.
A decaying hospital left abandoned in Kentucky becomes the alleged scene of a frightening encounter with a creature believed only to exist in medieval legends and fairy tales. The account goes as follows. I live in southern Ohio, near the Ohio River. Myself and a few friends decided to go explore an abandoned hospital that backed up to a giant hill and large forest across the river in Maysville, Kentucky. It was a local spot for dumb teenagers to go and scare each other and play grab-ass with their girlfriends. So running into other people wasn't uncommon, but you could usually tell if other people were around, as there would be cars parked near the spot. That being said, on this night, we were the only dumb teenagers there. The moment we got out of the car though, everything felt wrong. We knew we weren't allowed to be there because the building was condemned, but this felt like we were actually in danger. Which of course, we always were, because it was condemned. But it just felt different this night. By this point, I had been to the Haywoods Hospital 20 times or so, and was familiar with the layout. So about 45 minutes after the three of us got inside, we split up to tag some different places and explore. I went to go take pictures of the morgue in the basement, and to see if I could photograph any orbs, or anything else really cool. I had been in the morgue for about 10 minutes when I smelled the most foul odor I have ever smelled. It was rot. I don't know what it was that was rotting. I imagine it was a large dog or coyote. All I could make out was that it looked to be around 40 pounds of rotting meat. I had just started to look at the meat chunk when I heard the slam of a steel door and what sounded like someone running through puddles of water. This meant whatever it was in the basement with me. I knew because the floor had about 3 inches of water standing on it. Naturally, I figured it was my friends playing a prank on me. I decided to get them back and scare them before they could scare me. Now, the way the morgue was set up, you could actually climb on top of the coolers that were once used to store the bodies. I hopped up on the cooler and laid in wait. I was going to scare the out of my friend. I had been there no more than a minute when I heard screaming. Now, I've known my friends my entire life, which at this point had been 19 years. I've never heard screaming like this. The screaming stopped, and I heard hard footsteps running above me, and what I can best describe as pounding. Now, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't freaking out a little, because this wasn't like my friends. It was usually hide behind a corner, jump out, and go gotcha. But this was different. This was dread I was starting to feel. As I continued to lay there, about 5 minutes passed before I heard panting and footsteps in the water getting closer. That was when I smelled wet dog. But it wasn't just wet dog I was smelling. I was smelling that same smell of rot too. Then, another steel door slammed. I could tell it was the same door I passed before getting to the morgue door. The panting was even louder now and sounded more like labored breathing and sniffing. At this point, I'm terrified, trying to slowly back away from the edge of the cooler I was on so I could slip behind the wall that the cooler backed up to and then drop into the boiler room. I'm almost to the end of the cooler when I heard the morgue door slam open, causing the tiles behind the door handle to break. I'm less than 35 feet from whatever is panting and smelling like death, and all I can do is think, run, run, run. I could hear the sniffing, and then the deepest, most menacing growl I have ever heard. The movies and shows don't do justice to just how deep and rough a growl of this size sounds. It was sniffing me out, actually smelling where I had just been. Managing to drop down behind the wall in the boiler room, I thanked God the door connecting to the morgue was blocked with old gurneys and an upturned locker laying on its side. I thought the piled up debris would stop the thing from getting in. I was wrong. So very wrong. I hadn't been in the boiler room 30 seconds before I began hearing the pounding and scratching on the steel door. It sounded like Freddy Krueger was trying to carve his way through that door. Then I heard a sound that still haunts me to this day. It howled, and I mean it bellowed a howl. So loud, I had to cover my ears. Now, on the other side of the boiler room was the access to the generator and dock doors the trucks used when unloading, as well as an exit out to the hillside leading to the woods. When I reached the other side of the room, I could hear this thing slamming into the door, knocking the lockers and gurneys away. I was opening the door to enter the dock room when I chanced to glance over my shoulder. As I looked back, the arm of this thing, this creature, was sticking through the opening it had made, like a scene from a horror movie. It was a gray and brown mass of fur that resembled a human arm, but not entirely. The hand was all wrong. The hand had 5 digits and claws that would have made a bear run in fear. I slammed the door behind me and made a beeline across the room for the doors. The dock doors wouldn't budge, and I could hear the gurneys overturning and the lockers sliding over the floor. It was getting through, and the only thing between me and it was a single door. I ran to one of the windows by the dock doors and proceeded to bust it out, mangling my hand from the glass in the process. Then, as I was pulling myself through the window, I heard the door get slammed into and what had to be one of the hinges completely flying off the door and hitting a wall. Tumbling out of the window, I hit the cold, wet ground and stood up. As I stood, I saw it in the doorway. Now I'm 6'4" and 250. Not little by any means, but this thing took up the entire doorway. An 8-foot tall, 3-foot wide doorway. It was covered head to toe in gray-brown fur. It had a very narrow snout, almost like a Doberman Pinscher, and its ears were just barely visible because of the doorway, but I could tell they were pointing up, just like a dog. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was completely paralyzed. This thing was staring into my soul. Then it snarled, knocking away my frozen disbelief from what I was seeing. Waking me up, I turned and ran. I ran up the hill, into the woods, and around the hospital to get back to the street where the car was parked. I hadn't made it 25 feet when I heard it clawing as it attempted to get out of the window. I knew I would never make it to the car this way, so I ran back towards the hospital where the fire escape ladder was. I had used the ladder before to climb up to the roof in order to take pictures of the entire town. I completely skipped the first 3 rungs on the ladder and was inside the enclosed part of the fire escape when this thing howled again. I could feel waves of pure terror filling my body. My hand was killing me at this point, and I was getting blood on everything. Just as I was reaching the first floor window that I could climb into, this thing slammed into the fire escape ladder, knocking me down a couple rungs. It leaped onto the outside of the fire escape and began clawing at my feet. Just as I reached the window, I felt it. Pain, like nothing I've ever felt. It had grabbed just above my ankle and yanked, and in doing so shredded my boot to the end of my jeans and then into my flesh. I was able to pull myself into the first floor window and heard it push itself off the fire escape and head back the way it came. I'm now dragging my left leg and trying to keep my right hand in my hoodie pocket. The entrance we came in from is only about 150 feet away down the main hall and around a left turn. As I'm halfway down the hall, I heard the steel doors slamming again. I'm dragging myself down the hall, just trying to stay focused on getting out of this hellhole when the howling starts again, and I can hear it getting closer. As I round the corner, I can hear the pounding coming up the stairs from the basement, and as I make it to the entrance, I hear the padding of hands and feet on the floor. I made the mistake of looking back, and it was running on all 4s, like a real dog. I bolted down the hill towards the street where the car was parked, and realized the car was gone. They left me? My only way of escape was gone. I just zoned out and kept running down the hill. My leg was throbbing, my hand was in agony, and all I could think was I'm going to be dog kibbles. I finally made it to the first house I could find and ran full force into the door and began pounding on it like a crazy person. Thank God this little old lady was home, because she opened the door and I literally fell inside. Just before I kicked the door closed, standing up on two legs at the end of her driveway was this monster. I broke down in tears. I didn't know what else to do. Luckily, the old lady had called the cops because a crazy person who was bleeding everywhere had just fallen into her home. When the cops got there and asked me what happened, I told them the same thing I've said here. Of course, they didn't believe me and thought I was on drugs. The EMTs took me to the hospital and did blood work. When they found no substances in my system, they concluded I was attacked by a wild dog. I ended up with 36 stitches in my leg and 17 in my hand. I had to get rabies shots and tell the local wildlife officer my story. He informed me that they had reports of wild dog packs running around the outside of town, ransacking garbage cans and killing some of the local pets. I informed him that it wasn't a pack of wild dogs. It was a giant Dogman. They all just thought I was crazy. The only thing I had in my favor was the claw mark on my leg. Even the doctors were confused about how a wild dog could make a mark like that. So now you know my story, and you know why I absolutely know we are not at the top of the food chain. I've never been back to Hayeswood Hospital, and I've done my best to deter anyone from ever going there. The experience has haunted me for the last 11 years of my life. It has made me into the overcautious man I am. I always have to know where every exit is when I walk into a building, and I always know where any large clumps of woods are around me. This experience changed me and the way I look at the world forever. Just because we all haven't seen something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means some people haven't been hunted for their life. I have no doubt what stalked me that night was a Dogman. I know it in my bones. Initialed IM. If you have an account or personal encounter of anything odd and unexplained, whether it be ghostly visitors, a sinister stranger, cryptid or unknown entity encounters, demonic or angelic visitation, extraterrestrial contact, or anything else unexplained, feel free to contact me with your account by sending an email to designatedxshow@gmail.com. See you in the next one. Peace.